Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to unpack what might be one of the most unusual descriptions of modern fatigue I think we've ever come across in our source material.
It's so specific, isn't it?
It really is. It's not that tiredness you get from, not enough sleep or a hard workout.
No.
It's this deep exhaustion that Pedro Malha, he's the founder of the Ghost movement, he calls it the cost of being slightly out of rhythm for too long.
And that phrasing is just, it's perfect. It articulates a feeling that is so hard to name. And the way he describes it starting is, it's incredibly subtle.
So subtle.
You might walk away from a perfectly nice conversation, nothing stressful happened on the surface. But inside, you just feel thinned.
Thin, that's where it's like you're less present in your own body than you were before it started.
Exactly. And Malha points out that your body is keeping score even when your conscious mind hasn't really caught on yet.
Right, there's this quiet accounting happening. He details these immediate physical costs, that little bit of tightness in your chest.
Or that dull pressure behind the eyes.
Yes. Or just that feeling that the amount of effort you just put in was, well, it was totally out of proportion to what you're even talking about.
Like you've just discussed the weather, but your shoulders are up around your ears, braced for impact.
And that's the signpost. That's the entry point.
It is. And for anyone not familiar with the Ghost movement, that's exactly what it focuses on, this unseen psychological labor that we do. So today, our whole mission is to do a deep dive into Mala's essay, Out of Rhythm.
And his core idea, right, is that to maintain some of these relationships, we end up slowly, quietly erasing parts of ourselves.
That's the thesis, and we're going to look at the mechanics of how that actually happens.
I think that's why it resonates so much, because it gives a name to an experience that most of us just write off as, oh, I'm just tired.
Yeah.
So let's start where he starts. Where does this misalignment actually begin? And it's with something so simple, conversational predictability.
Yes. The conversation starts just like any other. You talk about your day, work, the weather, and there's this brief little window at the start.
A moment where anything could happen.
Exactly. Anything is possible. But then it arrives.
The familiar turn.
Precisely. It's like the conversational version of a recurring bad dream.
It's the same worry, the same frustration, the same looping story that you've heard, dozens of times.
You recognize the shape of it, as Mala says, before the words are even fully formed.
And that's when it happens. The moment you recognize it, your body shifts. Your attention just narrows. You're already adjusting to fit into that loop again.
You're preparing for the role you're expected to play. And this is where the insight from the Ghost movement is so important. They frame this as a difference of rhythm, not a fault.
Not a moral failure.
No, it's not about one person being right and the other being wrong. It's that we all move through life at different speeds with different emotional weights.
Can you break that down a bit?
Sure, think of it like this. Some people process difficulty by circling it, They stay close to what hurts. Others, they need to move forward toward an opening. They use momentum.
And neither of those is inherently wrong. It's just a different way of being.
Exactly. But, and this is Mala's key point, not all of those rhythms can be carried closely without one person paying a price. If your fundamental speeds are just that different, being close requires a huge amount of regulation from one side.
And that regulation is the work. That's where the exhaustion comes from.
It is. It's like asking someone who's a natural speed walker to constantly stop and start to match the pace of someone who wants to examine every single crack in the pavement.
The walker isn't wrong. The examiner isn't wrong. But for the walker to stay with them.
They have to constantly tense up, stop their natural stride, wait. That constant stopping and starting is exhausting internal labor.
Which leads right into this problem of accumulation, because it's not one big dramatic moment. It's so easy to ignore.
It builds up through sheer repetition. Each time, you soften yourself just a little bit more. You listen for a minute longer than feels natural for you.
You slow your own response way down, not because you need to think, but because you know your natural timing would kind of disrupt the mood.
And this is the critical part. You hold back what feels, in his words, too light, too quick, too alive.
Why? Why do we do that?
Because you instinctively know that your natural energy, your joy, or your quick move toward a solution, it would change the whole atmosphere, and the other person isn't ready for that.
So you edit your own vitality to match their gravity.
Perfectly put. And the really insidious part is that this isn't a conscious choice. You don't sit down and decide, okay, today I'm going to be less myself.
It just happens, quietly. through repetition, until that internal editor is just running in the background all the time.
And that is exactly where the internal contradiction starts to grow. It's so stressful
Yeah.
because one part of you, your body, knows something is deeply wrong. You feel that tension.
That flattening we mentioned earlier.
Right. But the other part of you, the rationalizing part, just keeps insisting you're overthinking this. It's fine.
That's the mental gymnastics, isn't it? You immediately start to suspect yourself.
You do.
You think, wait, have I become less tolerant? Am I impatient now? Am I not a good friend anymore?
The doubt turns inward. You question your own character instead of the dynamic of the relationship.
Because that's safer.
Of course, because you don't trust your own reading of the situation yet. It's much less scary to blame yourself because if you're the problem, maybe you can fix it.
If the dynamic is the problem, that might mean loss. And the mind hates that.
It resists fiercely. But eventually, the pattern just becomes too loud to ignore. You have this moment of realization.
You realize you're not just in the space with them anymore.
You're managing it.
Yes. You're alert. You're slightly ahead of the conversation. You're choosing every word so carefully, not to connect, but to stop that familiar loop from getting any deeper.
And because that management is so draining, the mind rushes in to make it okay. It offers an explanation that sounds noble. It sounds like loyalty.
Right. This is just how they are. Or they do the same for me.
And Mala is very clear here. Those thoughts might not even be false. They might be a wonderful, loyal person.
But the thought is serving a different purpose.
Exactly. It's serving as a distraction. It's turning loyalty into a reason to ignore what's happening to you internally. A healthy compromise is reciprocal. It leaves both people whole. This self-erasure is one-sided. It leaves you thinned out.
Which brings us to the core question the Ghosts movement asks, which I think just reframes the entire problem so beautifully.
It does.
It's not about whether someone deserves your presence. It's what it costs you to keep offering it in the same way and how long you have been paying that cost without naming it.
It shifts it from a question of duty to one of, internal sustainability.
Yeah, an internal economy. And that connects right to this idea of the past self. This one hits home for a lot of people.
The idea that some relationships don't stabilize around who you are now.
But around an earlier version of you.
Yes, a version that maybe had more capacity, less clarity on their own boundaries, more tolerance for this kind of thing.
And so to keep the peace, to keep the connection stable, you're constantly asked to step back into that old role.
And at first, it might feel like muscle memory, but eventually it feels, as he says, like wearing clothes that no longer fit.
Ooh, yeah. Nothing's actually ripping, but you're constantly having to, suck in your gut to make it fit. It just feels wrong.
And that constant effort, that's what leads to this really heavy, specific kind of guilt.
It's not a sharp guilt, like you broke a promise.
No, it's a character guilt. It makes you ask, am I becoming a cold person? Am I selfish? Am I abandoning someone who hasn't actually done anything wrong to me?
And that's the heaviest kind, because logic can't fix it. It just sort of presses on you. It demands you go back to the version of yourself that was easier for everyone else.
And if you keep giving in, if you keep wearing those ill-fitting clothes, the physical result is what Malka calls flattening.
Which he says is worse than pain.
It is. Pain is sharp. It demands your attention. Flattening is just a quiet, systemic shutdown.
You're not even necessarily distressed after the conversation. You haven't had a fight.
No, but you are completely unavailable for whatever comes next in your own life. The effort of that last interaction has eaten up all your reserves.
Your body has forgotten how to stand down. That shallow breathing, the shoulders still tense.
The readiness for a conflict that never actually happened is still active, so you can't just pivot to joy or creativity or your own work because your internal bandwidth is still tied up.
That failure to reset is maybe the biggest sign that the cost is too high. And that's why, as Malha points out, the change often starts in your behavior before your mind has even caught up.
Exactly right. You'll notice yourself replying to texts later, or you'll shorten a phone call without really meaning to.
You just stop absorbing the weight of their story in the same way. You don't announce it. You barely even admit it to yourself.
You just sort of watch your own body pull back, and at first, it feels more confusing than relieving.
You're in this new space without your old role, and you're not sure who you're supposed to be in that relationship now.
For some relationships, that subtle shift is enough. You find a new, less demanding rhythm. But Malha is clear that for others, for those that perpetually require you to brace yourself.
Sure, your natural tone, as he puts it, cannot survive contact.
In those cases, creating greater distance isn't a failure of care.
It's an act of self-preservation. It is a refusal to keep erasing yourself, to maintain a rhythm that just doesn't fit anymore.
And what's so freeing is that this distance doesn't need a huge explanation or absolute certainty. It can be partial, it can change. The only essential part is that you stop accepting your own flattening as acceptable collateral.
And when you stop paying that tax, your body is the first one to notice. The breath gets deeper.
The shoulders physically drop. And slowly, your attention starts coming back to your own life. You realize just how much energy was going into staying out of sync.
And this leads to what I think is the most profound reframing in the whole piece. He says this isn't progress. It's not about moving forward.
It's return.
A return to a more authentic self. A self that, as he says, simply stops leaking.
Yeah. I mean, the truth he's getting at is that this difference in rhythm doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs honesty.
And that honesty is just. It's the end of pretending you can afford a cost that you can't.
The freedom is in stopping the effort of convincing yourself that the problem is you.
So we'll leave you with maybe the most unsettling realization from the essay, the one that sort of unlocks the whole thing.
It's a tough one.
It's not about the distance you eventually create. It's about the moment you realize how long you stayed after you had already gone.
So maybe think about that. Where in your life might you be paying a cost you haven't named yet? What parts of yourself are you holding back just to keep the music playing?
We'll dive deeper next time.